We are in Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 11, and we are in this small section of 4 verses, and this is coming from Agur. Agur is, in chapter 30, these are the words of Agur. And these words, are they something that Agur had experienced, or is this prophecy? Because he's not talking about a fool or just one single person. He's talking about a generation. And in these 4 verses, it starts with, there is a generation. And this would be a generation that would show up every now and then. It's not that this generation just continues and continues in its wickedness, but that this can crop up and just rise up out of the sea of humanity. And what the causes are, I think Romans chapter 1 would help us in understanding what that is, because it does match with what Romans 1 states. Chapter 30, verse 11, there is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. And so this is a generation that comes out of nowhere. This is or so it would seem, comes out of nowhere. And it has no respect for parents, none at all. And that's not to say that every single person in that generation is going to be like this, but by and large it is. This would be the basic characteristic of that generation. But in Romans 1 and 30 speaks of those that are disobedient to parents. And don't think that as being a funny, minor, trivial thing, because Proverbs does not think so, nor does the Word of God think so. Whether we're talking about the law of Moses or the law of Christ, both demand an honoring of parents. And being disobedient to parents is not a good thing. And we have some things, like verse 17, the eye that mocks his father and scorns obedience to his mother, the ravens of the valley will pick it out, and the young eagles will eat it. Or that's horrible, horrible imagery in that. But here is this generation that curses its father. Once again, did he see this in action, or is this absolutely prophecy? Because it could be both, actually. It could be both. And definitely, it is prophecy. Definitely. Describing a generation that can come up at any time. And, of course, we can see throughout the book of Proverbs, 15 in verse 20, 19 in verse 26, 28 verse 7, and then verse 24 as well. We can see where there is a warning that is given for those that despise their parents, for the ones that forsake them, or the ones that will not be obedient to them. Now we come to verse 12. There is a generation that is pure in its own eyes, yet is not washed from its filthiness. They believe themselves, they consider themselves to be pure. They consider themselves to be right. And they're not. They're absolutely not. I remember as a child coming up with brilliant ideas and wondering why no one ever did them. Such as, I literally thought, and now I was young, it's not as though I was 18. I was pretty young, thinking that I should be able to grab a hold of my hair and pick myself up off the ground. All right? And in thinking of, well, that should work, but I've never seen anybody do it. If you could do it, why doesn't everybody do that? And you come to find out, all right, that's not the way it works. It seems like it ought to work. It doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? And well, it's a matter of physics and an impossible act. But there's a generation that's pure in its own eyes, thinks that it is correct and thinks that it is morally correct. And there are times in history of if you weren't sounding I'll redo the metaphor here. If you're not marching in step with the leaders, if you're not marching in step with everybody else, all right, they're going to reject you, and it may be pretty hard. And I'll just put out Puritans. Puritans were not good people. All right, they weren't. Your belief could get you either kicked out of a colony or hanged. All right. Because you had to believe what the Puritans believed, and they were thoroughly convinced they were right. Never mind the thing of witch hunts and all that. Never mind all that. Yeah, they thought themselves to be absolutely justified, absolutely pure, and they're not. All right, there is a generation that's pure in its own eyes, convinced. We see it in Judges 17 and also 21:25, where in that age everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Well, it doesn't take you long reading the book of Judges to realize nothing is right in this. There's an awful lot of wrong going on here. And that's one of the things that I've come across some folks where they will say, talk about something that occurred in Judges. Why would God allow that to happen? And my question to them is, what makes you think God did allow that to happen? Just because it happened doesn't mean He allowed it, nor did He command it, nor did He approve it. Did you not read, everyone did what was right in their own eyes? He's already, before we get to the book of Judges, He's already spoken against those things. He's made it firm that He is against those things. Just because they're doing it in the book of Judges only means that falling away doesn't take very long at all. Matter of fact, we can look at the base of Mount Sinai, where Moses is up and God is speaking to him, and everybody else is beginning to become idolatrous and very rebellious. All right? And so it's a thing of what standard are you going with? 2 Corinthians 10 and verse 12. For we dare not class ourselves or compare ourselves with those who commend themselves. But they, look at this, measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise. What is he even talking about? He's talking about you have a standard. The standard is I'm as good as this person, or the standard is I'm better than this person, therefore I must be pretty good. That they have a different standard. They have a standard that God didn't put, is extremely flawed. That because I'm better than this person, God must be pleased with me. Well, maybe He's not. Maybe He's not. You might want to look at that. That the standard isn't being better than just Tom, or the standard isn't being better than Harry. The standard is God's standard, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Here they are convinced they are right, but they are wrong. There's a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof is the way of death. All right. There's also the one who is wise in his own eyes, right in his own eyes, and that person is just a fool, is all they are. And we can see in Romans 1, verse 31, bringing Romans 1 in again, of a people that are described as undiscerning and without understanding. They have no idea that what they are doing is morally reprehensible, and God is completely against them. Now we continue on in verse 13. There is a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes. They see themselves as greater than anybody else. And, we've all seen it, of where some young somebody thinks they have the solution to all problems. They think they have the solution. And somehow, through all the thousands of years of humanity, no one has ever done that. Or if they did, we don't know that they did because it failed. That for thousands of years, humanity has existed without them. And one would wonder how that even occurred. How did we even exist? How did we survive without this person? Suddenly this person springs on the scene and they've got all the answers. Well, the likelihood is they don't. You might want to look at what they're talking about. You might want to look that what they are saying may have been tried before and it failed, or what they're saying is just ludicrous. It's just, okay, this isn't going to work. But how lofty are their eyes? I come up with these brilliant things. Everyone must follow them because I'm just who I am. All right? And their eyelids are lifted up. They are proud, but they're also vicious. There's nothing good about them. We already seen, yet not washed from their filthiness. Curses father, does not bless mother. Lofty, their eyes are lofty. They're just running on arrogance is what they're doing. And this idea of self-righteousness. And, there are folks that in rejecting Christianity will say that all Christians are self-righteous. Well, I would agree that some are. You're going to find that. All right, some are. But there's an awful lot of judging that goes on by those who are not Christians, and judging of that there is the self-righteous. They're the ones that think they are better than anybody else. Someone who is a follower of Christ does not think they are better than anybody else. Matter of fact, it's just the opposite. That we're on an even playing field. We are all beloved by God, created by God. We're all have our own place in this life, things that we are that God desires us to do. God desired Saul of Tarsus to do one thing, and Peter another thing. They're both preaching. They're both in congregations. They're both doing that. But Peter and Paul both have different things that they are responsible for, and that we're all equal. We're all even in all this. And here are this proud people. Proverbs 28:25. He who is of a proud heart stirs up strife. Well, that's what they do. They stir up strife. And now we come to this description that really sounds very similar. I'm not saying it's discussing the same thing. Very similar to Daniel chapter 7 and the fourth kingdom that rises, or the fourth beast that rises out of the sea. All right, because he says this, verse 14, there is a generation whose teeth are like swords and whose fangs are like knives to devour the poor from off the earth. All right, so here is this describing them: teeth, swords, fangs, knives, they devour the poor. All right, we can see a very similar language in Amos 4 in verse 1 of those that oppress the poor and crush the needy. But in Daniel chapter 7, verse 7 and also verse 19, he sees this terrible, monstrous beast coming out of the ocean. And it has great iron teeth and bronze nails. This is not an animal. Prior to that, a leopard with wings. All right? And that's taking, that too is a monstrous thing. I wouldn't want a leopard having wings, that's for sure. But it is describing kingdoms, actually empires. But this last one is coming out of there. That's not natural. That's not a usual monster that he has been seeing. And here is this generation that is just vicious and vile. And they are nothing but compassionless oppressors. And nothing more. Nothing more like that. And they've come out of the sea of humanity unpredictable. The sea of humanity is unpredictable. And that is precisely what that vision that Daniel sees of those kingdoms rising out of the sea. You don't know what's going to come out of there, but here in Proverbs is telling us, this note that this is a thing. This can indeed happen. Now, we come to this section of observations. This last one, I wouldn't necessarily call it an observation. Matter of fact, I'd put that more as prophecy, really. But we come now to verse 15. The leech has two daughters. Give and give. That's extraordinary wording. All right, and it's connected to the subject that he's about to, he just opened it up with that one, of these things that are never satisfied, constantly demanding. All right, never satisfied. All right, the leech has two daughters, give and give. These are three things that are never satisfied, four never say enough. Now this is a Hebrew poetic device, and when I was younger, I tried to figure this out. I tried to 3 and 4. What does that mean? I couldn't quite grasp. Why is he saying there are 3 things and he says there's 4 things? Well, it's a poetic device, and it's a Hebrew poetic device. Other nations around them may have used the same thing, being just kind of neighboring cultures, but it is a device of there are these 3 and there are 4. All right, it's more than just 3. It is now 1 more. All right, so these 3 are never satisfied. 4 never say enough. This I call this a poetic escalation, this we could see this same pattern in Amos 1 and 2. He has the same 3 and 4 pattern that is in Amos. Okay, so what are the things that are never satisfied? What are the things that never say enough? The first one is the grave, which takes us back to chapter 27 and verse 20. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. Hell, that actually should not be translated hell. It should be translated Sheol, that is the grave, that there's always room for more. Whereas in destruction never says, okay, I'm tired now. I can't handle anymore. Or Sheol says, I can't take anymore. That doesn't happen. All right, so never say enough. The grave, which that is scary. That is scary. That it is appointed for man once to die, but after this, the judgment. All right, and that everyone has that appointed day, that time, and the grave just can take more and take more and take the entire population of this earth, and it won't be empty. Or I should say, it won't be full. It won't be full, and if there was any more to take, would take it in. All right, so the grave, The next one is more of a human condition, but it's the barren womb. And we can look at someone like Rachel in Genesis 30 and verse 1, of where she could not have children, at least at this point in her life, she could not have children, but her sister Leah could. All right. And she did, okay, this is not the way home was meant to be. This is not the way marriage was meant to be. All we have to do is just look at things that were permitted or just done in the Old Testament and see that's not the design. We go to Adam and Eve and find the design. But here is Rachel. Rachel wanted children. 1 Samuel chapter 1. Hannah wanted children. She desperately wanted children. And now in time, both of them did. All right, Rachel had Joseph and Benjamin, and Hannah had Samuel, and then continued to have children after Samuel. And this is a desire, and it is someone who cannot have, or it appears that they cannot have, what they desperately want. What they absolutely want. They desire it, but it's withheld for whatever reason. Now, we come to the next one. The earth is not satisfied with water. All right, today it rained, right? And I expect more rain before the end of the year. Next year, I hope we have more rain. The earth has to have water. And Ecclesiastes 1 and verse 7, it talks about, yet the sea is not full. That there's always this water cycle that goes, and there's always water falling somewhere, and it goes back into the sea. Eventually, after going through rivers and then back out like the Mississippi out into the Gulf, or so many other rivers that flow out into the ocean. All right, so it's never satisfied with water. And here's the fourth one: the fire never says enough. It will always feed, and it will always grow. And as long as it's fed, as long as it has the next thing to burn, it's not going to stop. It won't. As long as it continues to have fuel, food, oxygen, those things, the fire's just never going to say, okay, I'm tired now. I'm full. It won't. It will continue to spread and continue to spread and continue to spread. And here is this idea of give and give. There are some things that we just need to understand, whether it's a thing of nature or a thing of mankind, such as the grave. The grave is a thing of mankind. We have to, that is inevitable. Or the emotions of a human being, the barren womb. That it is that emotion that is in there that deeply desires. Now, verse 17, we've already read this, so we'll just read it out briefly, because it goes back up to there is a generation. But the eye that mocks his father and scorns obedience to his mother, the ravens of the valley will pick it out, and the young eagles will eat it. All right. And we have other wording in the book of Proverbs 20 and 20 of his lamp will be put out in deep darkness. All right, this is all harsh warnings. This is harsh wording in this, and it's not given lightly at all. Now we come to the next observance, or observation, I should say. Verses 18 and 19. There are three things which are too wonderful for me. Yes, 4 which I do not understand. Well, Psalm 139 and verse 6, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Here, Agur, evidently, now Psalm 139, I do believe that's David that wrote that. But Agur has these observations. There are these things that I don't quite understand. I don't know how this works. They are astounding to me or confusing to me. Verse 19, what are these 3 things? Or actually 4 things. What are they? The way of the eagle in the air. All right, soaring at extraordinary heights. Being able to do that. All right, and that just, if you've ever seen some of these larger birds like an eagle or even vultures or other big birds gliding at enormous heights, they don't have to flap up there. They're just on the wind, and it's got to be fun. But they're just on the wind, and here Agur is stuck on the ground. How does that even work? How does this animal do that? Agur thinking, I got to be smarter than that bird, but that bird can do something I can't do. And but here's the next thing, and it's another thing of nature, is the way of a serpent on a rock. Wondering how, and I don't think this would be a serpent sunning itself on a rock. I think this would be a serpent moving across a rock. How does it slither? How does it do that? All right, and it actually moves. And if you've ever seen, you probably have, a snake that really wanted to move, they move faster than you think they could. They're pretty good when they're trying to get out of the way. They're pretty good at that. And he doesn't know. I don't understand how this works. And managing to move across a rock without any limbs. Okay. And now the next one is the way of a ship in the midst of the sea. So sailing over distances and depths and going to different quarters of the earth. And by way of wind is able to float on these depths and go to some distant place, and actually able to weather through storms, or you hope you can anyway. And that it's an extraordinary thing to see. And if you think, now this wouldn't have been in Agur's day, but if you think something like the Navy and steel ships, steel doesn't exactly float. Wood floats, steel does not. And how can you have this massive thing like an aircraft carrier? How can you have it made out of steel and it's perfectly fine on top of the surface? It just does. And this would, obviously, physics are involved, obviously. And that one would think that would just absolutely sink, just plummet right to the bottom. And he is seeing these things, and there is a beauty that is here. The eagle, the serpent, whether one likes serpents or not is a different matter, but it is a beauty and a mystery into it. And then we come to this fourth one, which I think is the emphasis. I really do. Now, that's not to say that every fourth one, the 3-4 pattern, that the fourth is the emphasis, but I think this one is. And the way of a man with a virgin. All right, this is from every bit of this is from the design. Every bit of this, whether we're talking about oceans and ships, though, God did show Noah how to survive a flood. All right, but we're talking about eagles, serpents, and now this is a man having an interest in a woman, and this is the design. Song of Solomon 7 and verse 10, I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. And it is in the design. It's in the design of things. And I remember as young and single, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were just both of us single, and both of us in school, and we were talking about different things. And I said, there are times when I am really kind of depressed, or just things don't seem to be going very well. And then I think, I would feel better. Things would be a lot nicer if I had a girlfriend. All right, he said, yeah, you're right. I said, he said, why would that be? And well, it's Genesis. That's why. It's Genesis. The whole thing of you can't live with them, you can't live without them. Yeah, there's something to that. And especially the you can't live without them. But here is the design that is there. And if we could go back in time, we'd see the same thing happening then that is happening today, as far as you have the Adams and the Eves seeking out each other. They are, or the Romeos and the Juliets. We can change it to Shakespeare. They are seeking out each other, and that is the attraction that is just hardwired. Now we come to verse 20, and just like verse 17, it's independent. It's not one of these observations, but this is what we could definitely call a proverb, and not just an observation. But this is the way of an adulterous woman. She eats and wipes her mouth and says, I have done no wickedness. This goes right to those who, not necessarily to that she's part of this generation, but pure in its own eyes, lofty. Their eyelids are lifted up. She cannot comprehend how what she has done is wicked. No understanding, shameless as well. Shameless. And that she has in fact destroyed lives in what she does. Proverbs 14:1 speaks of that foolish woman pulls down her own house with her hands. And to this sort of person, her sins are casual, meaningless, and that's it. That's it. It's nothing more than any other thing she might do during the day. There's nothing more. But with adultery is poison. It is poison. And I've talked about this on occasion, of having known certain men, and with adultery entering in, and they're the ones that did it. Adultery entering in, they lost everything. And it was immediate, because it is poison. This is not the way we were meant to live, and she has done wickedness. She has been destructive. She is not just some sinless sort of encounter. It is highly destructive. But losing family, and that means wife and children, losing job, losing friends, in what they thought to be just this casual sort of thing, secretive sort of thing, a thing that would have no bearing on anybody, just turn their life into a disaster. Just destroyed it. Now we come to this next observation, and this is we've had that of things that were too wonderful. We've had the things that are never satisfied. Now we come to this burden that the earth has to bear. All right, for verse 21, for 3 things the earth is perturbed. Yes, for 4 it cannot bear up. All right, so this word perturbed, which is from the New King James, it can mean that of agitated or enraged, provoked to wrath. It can also mean that of made to tremble. All right, so for 3 things the earth is perturbed. Yes, for 4 it cannot bear up. It's too much of a burden. All right, so the first one, verse 22, for a servant when he reigns. All right, now what would be wrong with that? It would be, of course, in the context of someone who's now an oppressor. This servant who's now become king. He was just a servant beforehand. Now he becomes king, and he just changed everything. Things may have been bad with the first guy, who knows? But with this guy, it just got worse. With this one, it just became completely worse. In 28 and verse 3, Proverbs 28 verse 3, a poor man who oppresses the poor. All right, he's like a charging lion or a charging bear or a roaring lion. He's the one oppressing the poor, and this servant in this context would be one that he doesn't care about the people he now rules. He doesn't care at all about them. It's him that he cares about, keeping his power and keeping his kingdom as only for himself. That would be it. Now we come to the next one, number 2. A fool when he is filled with food. All right? A fool becomes, in this instance, becomes confident and unpredictable and kind of amplified in foolishness. Ready for more foolishness, and believes that foolishness does pay. All right? I'm full. I am stuffed with food, and the way I'm living my life must be I have found the clever way to do it. I know how this is done. A fool when he is filled with food. In Jeremiah 44 and verse 17, we had plenty of food, were well off, and saw no trouble. All right? See no repercussion for your behavior. See no consequence. Foolishness must have brought in the plenty of food. Must have done it. And we see someone like Herod in Mark chapter 6 verse 23. He has a feast for his birthday in honor of him, and his wife's daughter dances for him. And here is this fool. He is Herod. Herod is he's full of food. He's being very unpredictable, and promises something very foolish. It's extraordinarily foolish. And this is one of those things of unpredictable. And I could just think of the others in the room when he says this, wondering to themselves, now that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. She just danced before you. That's all she did. And he says, ask me and I'll give you anything that you want, up to half my kingdom. Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. All she did was dance. That's all she did. All right, this man is just now saying something, giving this rash kind of promise. And what she requests is not half his kingdom, but it's what her mama wanted, and that is the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And then he realized, oh, that was a bad thing to say. That, I didn't say murder. I didn't, because though he imprisoned John, he did think of John as a prophet. And for the sake of those in the room, for the sake of those that heard his little promise, his little oath, he goes through with it. Instead of saying, okay, I'm taking that back, never mind. Never mind. Don't even ask me for another thing. I see where this is headed. No. Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, John is, what, because she danced? What? And that of course, Herod's wife wasn't supposed to be his wife. That was his brother's wife. And she definitely wanted John dead. And it's because, and let's just go ahead and say it, this was foolishness. And just because, and I'm saying this because I've met someone years ago who admired Herod for keeping his word. No. There are certain promises you just have to rethink of, no, that was a stupid thing to say. I'm not doing that. One may have given an oath to, let's say, a criminal organization. You may give an oath in a certain point in your life of you give an oath of loyalty to that criminal organization, and you thinking better of it, maybe you should say, okay, no, that was a stupid thing to do. I'm not keeping that oath. Even though it can cost you your life, I'm not keeping that oath. Now with Herod, it wouldn't have cost him anything, except I guess a few points of admiration by some. I guess maybe he wouldn't have lost anything at all. But here is this idea of this fool that's now full of food, and this just convinces him that all is well in the world. His behavior must be well. It must be good. That the food proves foolishness is providing for him. Well, it doesn't. Now, we come down to verse 23, and we're on now the third one, that the earth cannot bear up. All right, this is a hateful woman when she is married. All right, now, she is a problem to all around her, but you may have a different translation on that word hateful. Some may put the word odious. That's the same idea, odious. Others, and there's more than just a few, will put a unloved woman when she is married. And I don't believe that is it at all. Some have seen this as someone who is not liked, and I think universally not liked because she's made herself that way. But a woman who is unloved, well, we would have examples of that, of Leah, all right, Rachel's sister. She was not loved, and it was by a trick from her father that she married Jacob. It was by a trick, and she was not loved in that relationship. That because Jacob wasn't out to marry her, and so I don't think that it is the case that an unloved woman, when she is married, that the earth is perturbed with that or can't bear that up. I think the proper idea is, here is someone who is not good to begin with, but now she is married. Now she has some kind of authority over a household, perhaps, but she becomes worse, and it amplifies. And she is, in fact, a problem to everyone around her. And she, prior to being married, perhaps she had to keep that kind of low level, or it just hadn't developed this far. And then now that she's married, and it has. And now we come to number 4, which is similar to the first one. It is a maidservant who succeeds her mistress. All right, this would be the mistress perhaps has died, and the maidservant now takes her place, and she wants to make sure everyone else knows her position. Everyone else knows her status, as she's not a maidservant anymore. And here would be the idea of someone who's proud, who is vain, who now has all the things that her mistress used to have, now doesn't have anymore. And we may have seen a glimpse of this with Hagar. Maybe. Some commentators have said that in Genesis 16, verse 4, over Sarah, that Sarah became despised in her eyes, and that she saw more of a connection because Ishmael is Abraham's, that there's a definite connection of a child with Abraham. And she now despises her mistress, though her mistress is still there. Okay. And we may have seen kind of a glimpse of that. And it doesn't take long till Sarah, who brought that situation about, she is the one who brought it about. It was by her suggestion. Now she wants Hagar gone. Get her out of here and get her son out of here. And Abraham, that really disturbed him, but God said they're going to be taken care of. Listen to Sarah. They're going to be taken care of. And Ishmael, because he is your descendant too, he is going to be great. Now Isaac is the son of promise. So there's going to be a difference there, complete difference, but don't fear for them, because God is going to take care of them, and He did take care of them. It is time for us to end it, and thank you for everybody being here. Hopefully next week we will continue. Thank you.